The information provided on this podcast is for general informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your qualified health provider with any questions you may have. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. Reliance on any information provided here is solely at your own risk.
Welcome. This is Birth, Baby. Your hosts are Sierra Morgan and Samantha Kelly. Sierra is a birth doula, hypnobirthing educator, and pediatric sleep consultant.
Samantha is a birth doula, childbirth educator, and lactation counselor. Join us as we guide you through your options for your pregnancy, birth, and postpartum journey. Thank you to our listeners for your continued support. If you enjoy our content, please be sure to like, follow, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. This helps us gain visibility to other people that could benefit from listening in. Hello, everyone. Today we have a really special person for us because we have Maja Miller with us. She not only is a metabolic health coach and functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, which is just a fancy way of saying that she looks at clinical labs to analyze blood, urine, stool, hair, and all of these other things to help figure out why her clients are feeling burned out, exhausted, and sick. She's not only that, she's somebody that has had a baby with us before. And so that's why she's a little extra special. So thank you so much for being here today, Maja.
Super excited to see you guys. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. We are so excited. And, we're having you on this month to share not just your birth story, but your fertility story, because we're talking about all things fertility this month. And I know you had kind of a unique experience in your journey, and I'm just excited to hear kind of more about that. We worked with you once a lot of that was already past, so we heard bits and pieces, but I'm excited to kind of get more into it with you.
Yeah, let's go. Let's do this.
Let's do the thing. So tell us about kind of your journey to preparing for pregnancy and just kind of what that process looked like for you at the beginning.
Yeah, I am 46 years old right now. I have a almost 2-year-old little boy named Noah, and I am almost 20 weeks pregnant with my second little boy. And obviously, I'm an older mom, and I met my husband when I was older. I was really focused on work and career. So we did IVF as an insurance policy. So in my late 30s, I did 5 rounds of retrievals. We did 4 back to back to back to back retrievals in a row. And out of that whole process, I got 3 perfect kind of genetically tested, primo, AAA. I don't know if that's the good grading of eggs, but
amazing baby.
Yeah.
That's so funny. I love how you're grading them. You're like, I have 3 of the best kids.
they were the good ones. So they were the genetically tested ones, right? That's kind of like what you are more concerned with as you get older, the kind of the genetic abnormalities. And so we had, and then a few months later, 6 months later, I did another round where we just did eggs. We didn't fertilize. So all in all, we got 3 perfect kind of genetically tested embryos, 2 low-grade mosaics, which low-grade mosaics are like the good quality mosaics. So there may be some deviation, but there's like millions of mosaic babies, IVF babies that are out there. So we wanted to keep those. So 5 embryos total. And then I think we had like 11 eggs that we just never fertilized. And then, yeah, like a lot of crazy stuff happened with family and then followed with business, with COVID. And I was getting stories of like my friends being forced to deliver on their own in the hospital without their husbands. And I was very nervous about labor and not necessarily about being pregnant, but about delivery. And so I was like, okay, well, that is definitely not going to be me. So everything kind of just like the world kind of was like, okay, pause. We're not going to do this. So by the time we decided to implant, I was in my 40s, early 40s. So that was kind of the the kind of journey to get to first baby, I had a really lovely time with IVF. Um, I had, I mean, I didn't have a lot of the like negative symptoms that a lot of people had. Um, and yeah, like we implanted one embryo and got pregnant right away, implanted a second embryo and then got pregnant right away. So that's kind of the high level. I don't know what if you want me to dig in somewhere else, but high level, that's kind of how it went. It was pretty easy
Yeah.
breezy from like an IVF perspective.
I think that also has a lot to do with your personality and that you were like, you're a doer, you're like, I have an idea and I'm going to do it. Everyone else be damned kind of thing. Like you're just really motivated. And so I think that says a lot about you that you had an easy process with it, because I think a lot of that has to do with mindset too. And that is proven to be such a beautiful thing that you've had over time in general. So when you found out that everything worked out well and you had conceived and you were pregnant, how was that going? Like, okay, all of these things worked, the stars aligned, like we did it, we're here. And then what was your process like in preparing for birth? Because you prepared so much to become pregnant.
Yeah. Well, so I guess let me back up because I got pregnant naturally on my own. About a year before we implanted with Noah. And so I kind of skipped over a major part that wasn't so super easy, breezy, and flowy. I miscarried at like 7 or 8 weeks. And that was not an awesome experience, but also a beautiful experience at the same time because I felt incredibly like spiritually connected to like that baby. Like I knew it was a little girl. Like I knew her name was going to be Caroline. Like I just was very, very connected to this child. And so I felt like a pretty big sense of loss around that miscarriage. And speaking to kind of have your like, you're a doer. And so I was like, we're going to go and we're going to get that embryo and we're going to shove it in my uterus and I'm going to get pregnant in 30 days. And like,
Has anyone ever said that? We're going to get that embryo and we're going to shove it in my uterus.
like that was like really my mindset, which was like, okay, universe, I'll show you. And my HCG levels would not go down for like 6 months. And finally, I was like, okay, the universe is trying to slow me down. And I was, I did some labs and I just realized that I needed to prepare for birth. I needed to prepare my body physically for this baby. I had come out of an incredibly stressful, I would say, I mean, entire life, but very stressful 4 or 5 years. Like, lost family members, lost businesses, like just like very, very difficult for me. And so I realized that like my body wasn't in a place that it was capable of carrying a pregnancy and that there were things that I knew I needed to do. So I really treated myself as a client and I ran the same labs I would run because I work with a lot of clients that are trying to get pregnant. My last client that I work with spent $150,000 on IVF. Nothing worked. And within 6 months of working with me, she was pregnant. So I just kind of treated myself as a client and found some healing opportunities that really I needed to pay attention to. So did like a pretty major gut protocol, to get rid of some opportunistic bacteria, some leaky gut, H. pylori, and I started balancing minerals. And I believe that mineral balancing is really the holy grail to a healthy pregnancy and to a healthy postpartum and to healthy babies, right? Because these babies get what they need from us. And I run a lab called a hair tissue mineral analysis on all of my clients. It's my favorite lab after the experiences that I kind of had with both myself and clients who were trying to get pregnant, and non-clients that were not trying to get pregnant, just in general. And so I really started doing probably 6 to 8 months. I wish I would have done it like a year earlier. But it was 6 to 8 months that because I had just gotten trained on this lab and this methodology. So, trained on it, and I had like incredibly low, we call them your macro minerals, which is calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium. They're the most important, and impact kind of secondary and tertiary minerals. If you think about them as a triangle, the macro minerals are at the bottom. And so, I was a 4 lows pattern, where I pretty much had like no calcium, no magnesium, no sodium, no potassium. And it's going to be very difficult to get pregnant. And if you get pregnant, it's going to be very difficult to stay pregnant without, I mean, like magnesium is involved in 7 out of the 8 steps of the Krebs cycle, which is how your mitochondria makes energy in your body. And I had like none. So that was probably like the main thing that I really realized. That pregnancy loss made me understand that like your body needs to be healthy enough in order to get and stay pregnant. And there's probably a reason why I lost that baby. And I just had some work to do. So I went real hard. I think probably 8 months of like hardcore protocols around like gut, sleep, like all the things. And, yeah, that then we implanted, and I had a very successful implantation. So,
Wow. No, that's so cool though. I think the nutritional side of things is so important. We Sierra and I worked with a nutritionist as part of something we were doing for the podcast last year. And it was really cool because we both just learned like so many things that we did not know about before, and introduced, different supplements and different dietary things, and did all of these different things. And it just really changed, I think, how we both think about a lot of the different aspects of that. And definitely when it comes to nutrition, we talk about that all the time on this podcast and with our clients, how important that is for not just, preparing your body to have a healthy pregnancy, but then to continue with that healthy pregnancy and to feel good during that pregnancy as well.
yeah.
And I know that you experienced a lot of that as well.
Yeah, I have clients that, for example, don't remember the first year of their baby's lives because their postpartum and their anxiety was so off the charts. And I can point to like calcium and magnesium are calming minerals in the body. And you need certain minerals in order to produce certain hormones. And so there's just such if you go far enough upstream, minerals are cofactors to every metabolic function in the body. And so for me, I knew that I wanted to not only like have a great pregnancy, which I had no energy issues. I had no morning sickness, which is like unheard of. Like I felt fantastic. I had glowy skin. I mean, it was a really lovely, easy, breezy pregnancy, which I think also has a lot to do with like the support that you have, right? From doula, birth team, all the things. But I also wanted to make sure that, I was providing a spiritual and physical home for my baby while they were in my body, and that carried over to when they were, earthside, and a lot of that has to do with like nutrition and just making sure that you are present and like not freaking out and not crying and not anxious, and a lot of that has to do with like how much vital reserve you have. And if you kind of got pregnant when you were running on fumes and managed to hold on to your pregnancy is like the most stressful thing you'll ever do. And you like literally grew like a whole skeletal system, organs, hair, eyelashes, teeth, bones, muscles. And then you delivered this baby, which is like so traumatic on the body. And then, depending on if you choose or are able to breastfeed, which I was breastfeeding, you're feeding this child. I breastfed Noah for a year. And so like you have to feed your body at all of these stages. And I think that, it is impossible to be micronutrient sufficient in the United States, even if you are eating a perfect diet. So for me, micronutrient supplementation, your vitamins, your minerals, your amino acids, your essential fatty acids, is a non-negotiable. And I also think that there's a lot of like smoke and mirrors around like supplements, especially around prenatal supplements, where they're the wrong forms, it's the wrong quantities, the quality is really low. And so the thing that I love about like testing is that you're not guessing. And what I do with myself, everybody in my family, and all of my clients is that I work with this like amazing lab in Canada, and I do a custom blend for every single one of my clients. And the blend changes based on where you're at. Or is it prenatal? Like, are you preparing for pregnancy? Are you pregnant, or are you breastfeeding? So I kind of went from different stages of, kind of the formula was very different. So when I was breastfeeding, it accounted for the fact that I was feeding another human. And I think that a lot of times we're like preparing for pregnancy, but it's like, P.S. Like recovery takes years. And if you're feeding a child, from your own body, and even if you aren't, like there's like that year, 2 years afterwards is like is really, it's an intense period of time, emotionally, physically, spiritually, it could be financially, and so I think that all of that support is just like mission critical. And if there was one thing, like one lab and like one thing that I would do for anybody, it would be an HTMA and a custom mineral blend, because it's so important. I tested my son when he was about a year and a half old, and he had major deficiencies. And so he's on a custom blend. My husband is on a custom blend. I'm on a custom blend.
Awesome.
It's like minerals for everybody. So
I love that you mentioned them too, because we did a birth story with Courtney, who's actually a doula on our team, and she had an IVF journey, all of these things. And she was talking about how like not enough attention is paid to preparing your body for that. Everyone's like, just going in with whatever they have at the moment, not really thinking about, I need to prepare my body in order to become pregnant and stay pregnant in a healthy way. And also when partners are the ones that have maybe a deficiency going on, maybe it's not the woman's body, maybe it's their partner's body. And I think that was their case. And so it was like, okay, well, how do we get his sperm to have a better quality or whatever? And supplements for him. So I love that you like have your husband and your son on these things, because it's not just the woman's body that needs to have help with balance and regulation and is deficient in things. And that can also be affecting the big picture. And I remember when I was talking with you shortly after you guys having your son, and we were talking about the postpartum period, and you were like, I don't know how anybody gets through this without having you started talking about minerals then. And I was like, oh my gosh, I wish I could just go into your brain and learn all of these things from you, because so many moms feel like you said your friend did. They don't even remember the first year of life, and it's all a blur. And then you didn't enjoy it. And then there's trauma and sadness that comes from that too.
Yeah, I have a friend who that was her experience, 2 years, and she was talking about another baby, and I'm like, you have to run this lab. Like, I'm like, and then I showed her, and I'm like, you cannot have another baby. She breastfed her baby for 2 years, with no micronutrient supplementation in a very stressful situation at home. And I was just like, you can't do this. Like, it's not fair to your baby, like to do this right now. And so, she's really grateful, and we've got her on a custom blend for her as well. I mean, I think it's so important. And, this wasn't part of my plan, but I had, as you guys know, a C-section, and, Noah didn't have the same microbiome. Your baby gets about 16% of its microbiome from a vaginal birth. And so, yes, we did the vaginal seeding, but that is not the same as going through the birth canal. And so I would say probably like a year in, he got like his first like tummy virus where he had, diarrhea. And then he just like couldn't kind of kick it. And at one point he got like a full body rash. And the functional practitioner in me was like, it's gut. It's immediately gut. And so I ran a GI map on him, and then also an HTMA. And his GI map was kind of a mess, and we're addressing that. And his hair tissue mineral analysis was pretty depleted for a little human that's only been around for less than 2 years. And so we're addressing that. And I think it's really important to understand that like we all have a family microbiome, that we all share a microbiome. We are drinking after each other, kissing each other, eating after each other, going to the bathroom in the same place as each other. And like all this bacteria is just like floating in the air and we share it. And so I think it's really important to kind of look at the mom, but also look at the dad and look at the kids and like really address like the holistic health of the whole family unit. And that's kind of what we've been doing. And it's why I waited 2 years, essentially to get pregnant with baby number 2, because I think so much of like postpartum depression and anxiety with women is blamed on mental health, that you're like somehow depressed that you brought this like amazing human into the world. And I just don't think that that may be the case for a percentage, but I really truly believe that there's a physiological root cause that is very preventable. And it does not have anything to do with like SSRIs and all that kind of stuff. It's mineral based. And I don't think that like that message gets out there enough. So I really appreciate the opportunity and the platform to talk about this. Because again, minerals are like the spark plugs to your body. Like imagine having like a dope new car, an awesome playlist, all the snacks, your bestie friend is, riding shotgun. You're trying to go on this like awesome road trip to wherever. You turn on the car and it just doesn't turn on because you don't have a spark plug. You could have everything else, but if you don't have the spark plug, like you ain't going nowhere. And so minerals serve as the spark plug in the body for all of these things, right? Gut, brain connection, hormones, structural things, all enzymes. I mean, like literally every process in the body has a mineral as a cofactor, at least one. And so, and by the way, regular doctors aren't trained on these labs. So if you
doesn't even make it, you wish, right? Like, wouldn't it just be so nice? Like, where would we be?
If you think your OB knows this, like they don't, period, full stop. Maybe if you're working with like a functional medical practitioner or provider, medical doctor, RN, nurse practitioner, somebody like that, or somebody like me, that's an FDN. They may be trained on it. But the HTMA is also a tricky lab, and some things that are high aren't really high. They're actually really low. And you have to make sure that you've got a good practitioner reading your lab, because the lab is only as good as the person that's reading it. And so, yeah, I think minerals are just probably like one of the most important things that you can do in order to like prepare for healthy baby, healthy pregnancy, and then healthy postpartum.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like at a base level, we hear from OBs, like when we're talking about spacing babies, like, oh, you want to make sure you get, you have enough space in between pregnancies, for someone who's planning a VBAC like yourself, like they say, oh, you need a minimum of 18 months in between deliveries, but it's not just about that. And we talk about that, like, at the base level, we want to allow your body to kind of reset and recover from postpartum and being depleted, but we don't really talk about like what is being depleted and what you can do to reset and to replenish your body in those days. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people who have babies that are closer together will say, oh, my second pregnancy was so much more difficult. I can say this for myself. My second pregnancy was so much more difficult because my body was so depleted, because I was still nursing and I didn't have a lot of break. And I definitely, I was focused on keeping a human alive and had no idea about, diet and nutrition and any of those things. So that is such a huge piece of not just the fertility journey, but pregnancy and postpartum, exactly like you said.
Yeah, because I mean, I have had a really lovely postpartum, but it's because I've had the support. It's because I've pulled back 80% on work. It's like, we've kind of built a life around like making sure that I'm recovering and feeling better. And I think there's lots of ways that you can do that. But I mean, I think mineral supplementation is just a no-brainer. And when I say custom mineral blend, there's also, I might put kelp in there if your thyroid needs some help and we know that you're deficient in iodine. I might put collagen in there if we know that like you aren't getting enough protein. And the HT can tell me a lot of these things or give me some hints and clues to these things. We might put like B vitamins. We might put like all sorts of different things into the blend. And because the reality is like your metabolism is as unique as your fingerprint. There isn't another one like it anywhere in the world. And so why are we putting every single woman on the exact same prenatal, pretty much, plus minus, when we know that like bio-individuality is like an actual thing.
Yes. So how do you feel like all of that kind of played into your pregnancy? I know you shared a little bit, like you felt like your pregnancy was so easy compared to a lot of your friends. And I can say as your doula, I totally agree with that. I saw how you just like breeze through, and Sierra and I would talk all the time, like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know how she is she's so zen, and she just is, like you said, glowing. Like she's just absolutely thriving in this pregnancy. And I love that so much. How did you feel as your pregnancy went on? Kind of how did that go for you, especially moving towards birth?
I also have to say real quick, I have to say it was so fun too, because you were a quote unquote old mom, right?
Yeah.
And so it was like, she's running circles around these 25-year-olds, you know? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
I think that there's a couple of things, right? It's like, I'm an older mom. I'm also very confident in the way that I move through the world. I'm not in my 20s or 30s. I'm in my 40s. I've been around the block. I had great support from your team, my midwife, I was very afraid of the birth process. Like, to me, it was probably one of the reasons I waited as long as I did to have a baby, because I was just very, very almost like illogically afraid of the pain. Can I do it? And I actually think that Noah, my first, sensed that. And I think that is why he chose his C-section birth. I think he just wanted to like let me off the hook. I think as a crunchy mom, I felt like I needed to have this very specific type of labor, no epidural, when I look back on it, I think he just like chose it for me. I think he knew I was so scared of the actual birth process. And to your point, I'm like, I'm going to do this, right? Like, so I ignored all of it, like for the most part. You guys were like, you should go check out the hospital just in case like something happens. I'm like, nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to check it out. And like, here I am at 42 weeks and 2 days. And they're after twice trying to be induced and like not a blip on the radar, like not a contraction, like not even a centimeter dilated.
Yeah. Will you tell us a little bit about that? Because that was one of the wildest like ends to a pregnancy.
Yeah. And weren't you 42?
Yeah.
Because I thought it was funny that you were 42 and you were 42 weeks and 2 days. It was like, she's 42 years old coming in at 42 weeks, 2 days. They don't like any of this at the hospital.
No, they were like, they were losing their minds, I'm walking in with like a midwife. Our St. David's North is like really, I think, great. They have a midwifery practice. So I was talking to a midwife. It wasn't like the normal experience that I think maybe a lot of people may be getting at hospitals that like really aren't down with like midwives and doulas and all that stuff. So I had a lucky experience there. But yeah, I probably at 40 weeks, maybe even earlier than that, I actually thought I was going to have a C-section, but I never told you guys. I never like uttered the words because I didn't want to like manifest it. And I had a conversation with Noah in the shower and I was like, look, I trust your wisdom that you're going to come into this earth like how you need to come in. And I never told my husband. I never told y'all. I never told my midwife. I just kind of like kept it to myself. And then one night I lost it emotionally, like just lost my mind. And it was because that was kind of when I came to the conclusion. And the next day I kind of had that conversation with Noah. And so I was kind of like mourning the loss of that vaginal birth, of what I thought was supposed to be the way that you have babies. It's like the healthier way for you, for the baby, for, all the things. And so, yeah, like my midwife is very low intervention. I'd never had a cervical check, which for me, I was very important for me. And like we did 2 membrane sweeps. We did 2 rounds of castor oil. And at 42 weeks, I did my second round of castor oil. 39 and 6, I did my first round. It did not,
Yeah.
nothing happened.
I remember you called me 2 hours after you took the castor and you were like, I don't know what's going on. And I was like, oh, I also don't know what's going on, because that does not happen. And it really was just your baby. He knew how he wanted to come, and that was that.
Yeah, I think he knew. And he's a real chill, low stress baby. I think he was like, I'm just not down with the stress. And then also my mom seems to be really stressed out about this day. So let's skip it.
He's like, opt out of the contractions, opt out of the thing that's going to squeeze me, unsubscribe, just cut up in the top, sunroof exit. Thanks. Appreciate you.
Yeah. So I, I wanted to just go longer. My midwife thought it was totally, because average first time baby is 42 weeks. That's average, which means and now a lot they're inducing and going straight to C-section so early. But I knew I was safe. The baby was safe. We were doing, all the ultrasounds and the bio checks and all that stuff. So we knew everything was okay. But yeah, the main guy, we went to a specialist. He's like, I can't recommend that you go. So, and then at 42 weeks in the state of Texas, I turn into a pumpkin. My midwife cannot see me legally. She would lose her license. So it was either go home and just wait and have this baby on my own, which I am adventurous, but not that adventurous, or it was check in to go to the hospital. And as awful as I thought that experience was going to be, it was actually very lovely. I had the midwife at St. David's North was amazing. I walk in and the first thing I do is just start sobbing. And she asks me what, tell me about the tears. Why are you crying? There's a reason behind them. And I explained, I wanted this thing. And so she's like, look, just talk to me about what's important to you. I'm like, okay, well, what's important is that my husband is there, that we do vaginal seeding, that I get immediate, give me my baby, and don't touch him, don't wash him, don't poke him, don't slap him, don't put stuff in his eyes, just leave him alone and let him be with me. And so those were the things that were very important to me. And they gave me 2 rounds of cytotech to try to even get my cervix to open, because I was not even a centimeter dilated after 42 weeks, 2 days, 2 rounds of the Miles circuit, all the things. I did all the things. I had sex with my husband that pregnant. It was the grossest thing ever. I hated it.
Because you didn't go into the hospital intending to have a cesarean. We went in intending to have a medical induction.
Yeah. Yeah. And, the midwife came in and she's like, look, we just looked at your BPP. This is a big baby. He's going to be anywhere between 10 to 12 pounds. He's huge. He's going to be huge. And your body is not reacting. We could keep doing this and force this, but more than likely you're going to end up in either an emergency cesarean section, which all of those things that you just told me were really important to you are now off the table. Now this is an emergency C-section. You are fully under, you are not present. Your husband is not there. You don't get delayed cord clamping. You don't it's just a completely different experience. Or the likelihood of shoulder dystocia, if we kind of force this and we have to either, she was we either have to push him back up through you and then do the this emergency cesarean, or we have to break his collarbone. And as soon as she said that, it was so she's like, what are you doing? I'm like, let's go. And I think everybody was actually very surprised at how, because like here's this like crunchy granola mom, 42 weeks and 2 days, and like coming in with a midwife. And I just very like, I instantaneously, like in my soul, knew that the C-section was the right thing. So I never felt like I had anything taken from me. It was something that I chose and that Noah chose. I didn't feel like it was forced on me. I didn't feel like I was manipulated, which I feel like so many women today are manipulated into these like inductions and C-sections. And so I walked out of that whole experience feeling like really great. And my recovery was easy breezy. Like, really, I think there was a few times I sneezed or I coughed and I was like, oh, that hurts. But for the most part, I was like, I mean, I think they gave me like a cocktail of like ibuprofen, some like cold medicine, and like something else. It was like,
Yeah, Robitussin, it's a cough medicine. And
yeah,
actually, it's interesting because it is a way that improves outcomes post-birth, post-cesarean, but it's such a weird thing to give, but it really has helped. It helps.
I mean, I had very little to no pain. I mean,
It's amazing.
I was very, very surprised. I'm like, why are we giving opiates? Like, why are we giving opiates to people? Like, this is crazy. I just had like my entire guts removed and put
Yeah.
back in after they like did a baby snatch. And then like,
A
how is
baby
this?
snatch.
Like, how is this like how does this work? But it did. And then there was the like the nurses that were like, on shift were really lovely, taught me how to breastfeed, were just like really supportive. So I had a great experience, even though it wasn't the one that I thought I was going to get. So yeah, all in
Yeah.
all, I recommend 2 thumbs up. Let's do it
Good.
again.
Amazing that you can leave that experience feeling that way because,
Yeah.
trauma is relative and different people come out with different things. Sometimes I see a birth and I'm like, that birth was amazing. And then I check in with the parents and they feel traumatized. And there are
Yeah.
other times where I'm like, that was a shit show.
Yeah.
And then they're like so happy. And of
Yeah.
course, I'm not putting my impressions on them because I want them to be happy.
Right.
But we just never know how someone's going to feel after a situation like that. So crunchy-ish pregnancy, doing all the things. Then we end up having a cesarean. And then how about postpartum? Was it what you had thought it would be? Was it different?
Yeah. I mean, I could cry thinking about how like awesome it was. Like it was really lovely. I have an amazing husband. You guys know
You
the book,
do.
what is it, 40 Days? 40 Days, is that it's like the
The
Chinese
first 40
medicine book,
days.
the first 40 days. So, he, like the next day I came home from the hospital, he I still have the book with all of the post-it notes. He like wrote notes and like a whole meal plan. And he's like, okay, you can't have anything cold. I know you hate socks, but you got to put socks on your feet. You also can't have anything crunchy because like just something about like the yin and the yang of like whatever. And I just remember, like tearing up, being like, wow, like I'm feeling like very well taken care of. Also because I'm an older mom, we really prepared our people. Like, please don't expect to know when we go into labor. Please don't expect an invitation to the hospital. We will let you know when like Maja is ready to, like, everything revolved around me. Which I think is really lovely because I think oftentimes the baby comes and it's like everything revolves around the baby, but it's like the most logical thing to understand. Like, okay, well, the baby's relying on me. So like, why are we like worried about the baby, but not the mama? And so again, because I think I moved through the world with a lot of confidence, I didn't really care whether or not I made anybody upset. I was going to do things the way that was like best for like me and my family. And everybody took it really well. I think if you like move, with like BDE, like big dick energy through the world, like people are like, okay, fine. Like clearly this is the way she wants it. Right. But if you're like justifying and like, oh, maybe we should call it BME, big mama energy and not big dick energy. I think that's more
We can
appropriate. But like,
BTE, big titty energy, even with those
there
with
you
little
go.
ones, you just have the energy of the big ones.
But just like this energy of like, this is what I want. And I wanted it to be just like really about like me and the baby and Ryan. And so I had a really great like postpartum experience because I was like fed and I was so hungry. Oh my God, I was so hungry. Um, I was not one of those moms that lost weight breastfeeding, which like everyone's like, oh my God, you're going to lose so much weight. Okay. I lost like 30 pounds pretty much immediately after delivery. And I gained almost all of that back within, I would say, 6 to 8 weeks. I
I
was
really hate that people
eating
go
like,
around saying that because it's one or the other.
yeah, like
Either
birth
you
is a
lose
weight
a
loss
ton.
program.
No,
Yeah.
either you lose a ton and then you gain it back after you breastfeed when you're done, which was me. I was like
Yeah.
grossly skinny and then gained 15 pounds when I was done nursing. Or you hold on to all of it and you don't lose any of it until you
Yeah.
stop nursing. And both are normal. So
Yeah.
I try to tell people that because it's like, then they're disappointed that this isn't their weight loss journey. I'm like, we're not supposed to be trying to lose
Yeah.
weight, right?
Yeah. So it was, I mean, for me, I was like very hungry. And so food was such an important part. Like Ryan made me like 2 breakfast burritos every morning. And like that's what I ate. And I was eating like double meals. And I just knew my body was asking for what it needed. And I just kind of was like, all right, we're going to be fat for a while. And that's okay. Like I'm dealing with perimenopause and postpartum, like literally at the same time. It's like not the double whammy you're like hoping to deal with in your life. But I'm like, whatever, like that's not, I'm trying to like bring my family earthside. So that's what we're trying to do here. So kind of kept that in perspective. But my postpartum was great. I had some rage at a certain point. I think for me, having Noah and like I just didn't know what it was like to be a mom. Like you don't know until like you have it. And then you realize for me, it was this sense of how effed up the world is, I think sometimes, and like how so many things are wrong and how moms are not like revered and cherished. And it brought up a lot of things around like the way that I was raised, where I'm like holding onto this baby and thinking I would like give my life to protect this child. And then kind of looking back at like how maybe some things that I experienced as a child or as a woman. And so I think there was some like anger there around how like people have showed up in my life. Now that I've had this experience, I'm like, I would never have done that. I would have done it completely different. So I think there was some of that kind of happened. And that was kind of in conjunction with like the 3 and 6 month sleep regressions. Um, so yeah, I would say overall, I would give like my postpartum like a 9 out of 10. And I'm glad I felt those things too, because I think it made my postpartum a little bit more realistic. Because I think a lot of times I felt like I couldn't relate to a lot of people. You know, they're like, oh my God, like, are you not sleeping? I'm like, no, I'm sleeping great. I'm like, are you not this? And I'm like, no, like I didn't have like this very relatable pregnancy. And I felt like I couldn't talk about it because then I'd be like bragging. so,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that was probably the hard part, but that was also short lived. And as you kind of come into your own and the schedules kind of start making more sense and you feel a little bit more confident, I feel like a lot of that stuff goes away. So,
Yeah, I not that you need accolades or pats on the back from me, but I do remember just thinking what a beautiful soul you were and how much I admired your ability to put self aside in a way but not really. It was like you still did everything you needed to do for yourself first, put on your mask first, and then you also gave Noah everything he needed. And you were okay with that because you were getting what you needed. And there were times where what he needed impeded your ability to do what you needed, but you felt okay because you were still being filled up. And
yeah,
so it was like, oh my gosh, sometimes every once in a while sleep was wild, like those regressions that you're talking about. And I remember that. And you were like, but I'm not willing to do anything that's going to harm him.
yeah,
I just want to figure out how to make it work better for me.
yeah,
And I think that is a beautiful thing that not everybody has. But I just remember thinking it was so wonderful that, and also your ability to like you said, go around and be like, these are my hard boundaries. This is what I'm doing and I'm not sorry.
Yeah.
And it worked well for you. It doesn't work well for everyone, but it did.
Yeah.
And you were respected. And I was like, good. I mean, around that time, we had a lot of clients that were not doing that. And I remember thinking, everyone needs to take a page out of Maja's book because you guys are letting other people crush your happiness so much.
Yeah.
And it is so common for childhood trauma or whatever you want to call it to bubble up when we have our own children. And we actually, when this comes out, an episode will have already come out about, it's Mi Casa es Su Casa, is a place here in Austin that works with music therapy and helping, like, or music classes, but also helping parents learn how to deal with their own things that are coming up when they're parenting. And so if anyone's listening to this and wants to go back and listen to that episode, if you're feeling that when she's saying that in here, that might be a good thing for you to listen to too. But you just had such a well-rounded outlook and also such a beautiful support system, especially with Ryan. I mean, he was just precious.
Like it's really, again, I came into marriage in a relationship, like a serious relationships later on in life. And I think the one thing that I told Ryan, I was like, I am always going to be the most important person to myself. And then you will be my next most important person. And then Noah will be the next most important person. Like there's a hierarchy to this. And it should be like that for you. Like you are your most important person. Like we need to come into this as like two whole ass human beings so that like we can support and love and partner with one another so that this child has like a truly like safe, fun, loving kind of home to grow up in. And I feel like there's this like martyr mentality that I think is like expected of moms. And like I don't like unsubscribing from that as well, because it doesn't work. We have to take care of ourselves first. And I think that like hierarchy is really truly important. So really the preparation, right, started with like self-work so that I can be in this relationship. I'm picking the right person because I mean, there's nothing worse than, being postpartum and feeling like you have a partner that, is trash and not supportive, So yeah, it was awesome. It'll be interesting to see how, this second kiddo, how all this, kind of is different. And, this pregnancy has been a little bit different as well, but for the most part, still pretty breezy.
That's awesome. Can you share with our listeners where they can find you if they want to learn more about you and your business, or just want to chat a little bit more about what you shared about today?
Yeah. You can find me at majamiller.com. It's Maja with a J. Miller should be pretty self-explanatory, but and you can find me on Facebook, Maja J. Miller. And those are probably the two easiest places to get a hold of me at.
I love it. And we'll make sure we include those in the show notes as well.
Awesome.
You are just a fascinating human, and the knowledge that you have within you about all of this stuff for preparing your body is incredible. So I imagine that people will hear this and go, I want to know about my own personal supplements, my personal mineral blend. So I'm glad that they will be able to reach out to you if they want to. And we just wish you all the luck with this next sweet baby. And we know that you're just going to be amazing, like always.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Birth, Baby. Thanks again to Longing for Orpheus for our music. You can look him up on Spotify. Remember to leave a review, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. See you next week.